show up 3 times a week? Are you going to show up once a week? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself. Hi everyone, Christina here. So today I wanted to talk about the next step that you guys need to take when you are starting your private practice and your brand. So we talked about in the previous video where we are looking at building a blueprint for our brand as the second step. And the previous step before that, we wanted to think about our niche and our focus in our private practice and brand. So now for the third part of this, we need to start thinking about our marketing strategy. Where are we going to show up online, offline, depending on your ideal client? So let's go. All right, so this is basically everybody's questions, for marketing themselves. So obviously the online digital world is the place to go for marketing yourself because it's free and there's a lot of opportunity. So I guess the question becomes, where do you show up, right? There's so many platforms. Facebook, you got Twitter, you have LinkedIn sometimes, you have Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. There's probably other ones that are not coming to my headspace right now, but those are the ones, or maybe YouTube. Those are the ones that really show up in my headspace right now. But each of these platforms have a different audience and different behaviors, and they watch or consume things a bit differently on each platform. So that's something to be aware of when you're thinking about, how do you want to show up online and what is comfortable for you. Because I think the first thing I would suggest doing before you start jumping on Twitter or jumping on Instagram, the first thing that you want to think about is, what are you the best at in terms of articulating your knowledge into content, a form of content, because content comes in a couple of different ways. You can do a podcast, you can do a text post, so you can do like a blog, you could do videos, there's just pictures too. So there's a lot of different types of content that you can create. I guess the question becomes, what are you best at? Are you good at writing? Are you good at videos because you're very good at speaking? Are you good at visuals? Maybe you're good at drawing, and drawing what your posts are, might help with content. So these are things that you want to think about before you even jump on a platform. You want to think about why you're doing this and, what your intentions are going to be. What topics are you going to talk about? Because it's great to follow the trends, but you need to be strategic with how you use the trends because they should tie into your topics. So if your topics are maybe, and it has to be in line with the problem that you are focusing on. So if you're, talking about disconnection, where you feel disconnected from the world, from your friends, your family, that type of problem, you can break it up into a couple different areas of content. So it could be, tips, advice for basically disconnections. You can provide activities. So those are a couple different things. You can also share, depending on if the client is okay with this, you can share testimonials as some of your posts and content, maybe some mock-up activities with a client. Those are very helpful to be seen. It just really depends on confidentiality and if the client is receptive to that. But you want to know exactly what type of content you want to be posting, because you have to have a plan before you start jumping onto platforms like TikTok and just throwing things out there, right? You want to make sure that any content that you create has value. So now that when you have your plan down in terms of, topics that you're going to talk about that are related to your problem, and the form of content that you're going to stick with, whether it's video, text, podcast, now you're going to look at your ideal customer that you have in mind and ask yourself, where do they show up? What is the best place or platform that would, where I can meet them there, So if your audience is teens and they're musicians, musicians, they would be attracted to platforms that provide video, right? So that could be YouTube, that could be TikTok, Instagram. So these are the 3 platforms that maybe you would go and create your content on there, because you'll have a higher chance of running into these types of people on that platform. Because if you jumped onto Twitter, I don't feel like you'll have the right space for attracting these people, because Twitter is more text-based. So you might not be able to reach them there. So really think about the platform that you want to use, and be sure that you're comfortable with the platform that you want to use too, because you want to meet them where they are. So you want to meet where your ideal customer is, but at the same time, you also want to tune in with yourself and ask yourself, do I feel that TikTok is right for me? And will TikTok, serve my content the best? Those are some questions to reflect on, because you don't need to show up everywhere, at least not yet. You want to talk about just, picking maybe 3 platforms to start on. So one platform would be hosting your major content, and then another platform would link to your major content. And then the third one would more likely be an email list, where these 2 platforms are going to lead to the email list. So that's a good place to start. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with too many marketing strategies, because it can get really crazy and it could take up a lot of your day if you're not strategically selecting where to show up, and if you do not have a plan in action. So now, once you have a plan of action for your marketing strategy, overall at least, and you picked, your first platform that you're going to host your content on, now you have to think about your frequency of how you're going to show up. Are you going to show up 3 times a week? Are you going to show up once a week? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself, because you're starting out, maybe you just want to start small and maybe just show up once a week, just to get comfortable and get used to posting a lot. You could do 3 times a week, where, you are not showing up every day, but you are showing up 3 times a week, which shows that you're active. So again, it really depends on you and, what you're comfortable with showcasing, because each platform has kind of a different algorithm. So TikTok is probably going to be the most frequency that to show up more than Instagram or than YouTube or Facebook. TikTok is probably going to be the one that you have to be there consistently every single day. So if that's not for you, don't worry that you don't have to do TikTok. If Instagram is for you, then Instagram usually says that about 3 times a week show up is, a good frequency. You're not posting every single day, but just enough that people know that you're active. YouTube, on the other hand, once a week I think is pretty good. The algorithm still picks up on, your older content as well. So this is how we have to think when we are just about to jump on to creating content. And now the next stage here is, now that you've planned out your whole content marketing and how you're going to show up on each platform, now you have to start creating that focused content. And what I mean by focused content is the niche that you picked. So if you are focusing on a problem of disconnection, you are going to be solely sticking to that. And you're going to be creating content around that. So maybe asking your people, your followers, if you have any followers. If not, you can just start thinking about commonly asked questions within that problem and see what you can come up with. If you have any tips that you can share, or if you have any activities that might help them get through something, or if you have any mindset shifts that might help to steer them in a different direction. But you want to focus on delivering good content, because you don't want to be like videos I've seen lately where it's just people dancing, but it's not providing them value. And what's really important here is to always provide value to your people online, because that's what really content is for. It could be there to educate, it could be there to inspire, it can also be there for entertainment, but really it should provide some form of value, at least in those areas. But I see for our therapists, I see you guys being a little bit more educational. But, entertainment is still something too, and even inspiration as well. However you are as a art therapist, that, you all have your own little quirks, and being able to, be entertaining and educate at the same time would be very cool. And tuning back into basically talking about the marketing strategies, you don't want to pick too many tactics. That's why I was saying before to just start on one platform, really master it, and then start extending yourself. Because if you have too many things going on in each basket, it gets a little overwhelming. And then you start stretching yourself really thin, and then your content loses its quality. And really that is important, that it's more about the quality than the quantity, because people love really good videos, not something that was rushed or, bits and pieces are all over the place, right? So don't worry about trying to do all the tactics, because you can build on that later. Right now, the focus here for you is to start making content. When you start, you're going to start seeing some traction coming. When I'm talking about marketing strategies, for each of the platforms, like I said earlier, each of these platforms different. They are all different. They all have a different strategy, because YouTube uses different algorithms than, let's say, Instagram does or TikTok. So you have to do your research before you start jumping on these platforms, because the strategy and algorithm behavior is different. So if you're aware of these, you'll know exactly how to show up, and you'll know exactly the type of content to create. Because, like I said, for example, TikTok has short form videos, whereas YouTube has long form videos. So your strategy could be, you host your main content on YouTube, and then your short form content, which would summarize these videos in the long form content, in TikTok. which then whatever's on TikTok is going to be directed to your main content, which is on your YouTube. So that's what I mean by strategy, and the way that you're working it through basically to subscribers, on YouTube or on TikTok or on MailChimp, which is your email list. So that's why you want to be strategic with what you're starting with first. And again, showing up to the right platforms that your ideal client would consistently show up on. And again, you are going to be experimenting too. So sure, you're going to have tactics in place and a plan of action. Now, what you need to do is to make sure that when you are creating content, you are monitoring the behavior. If there's a video that's doing better than some of your other ones, really review that video and see why it was doing really well, and see how you can repeat that strategy that you did in that video, because you want to stick to whatever was working, right? You don't want to, continue just doing the same thing, right? You have to listen to your people and see what works for them, because this is you getting to know them and knowing what works for them. So maybe, for example, in YouTube, maybe the 30-minute videos are too long and they don't have the retention time or or even have the the capacity to absorb a 30-minute video. So this is the part where you start monitoring your analytics within each of the marketing platforms. But we'll talk about that another time, because that's a whole nother video. But again, don't just stick to the same thing. Really, really monitor your content as you're creating it and see what is working very well for you, and to continue on that path. And I understand that creating content can be really stressful and frustrating, but it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be that way. And the way to go about this is to just talk to your people. Reach out to potential clients that you think might be a good candidate for you, and see if you can book a call with them and do a really quick interview with them to ask them some questions. What are they feeling right now in terms of disconnection? Are they feeling disconnected, and why are they feeling disconnected? And what's on their mind right now in terms of feeling disconnected? And anything that comes up in that interview, take notes, because anything that they're saying could be easily turned into content that could help them. So this is where you have to be really, really alert. And you can even go into profiles, social media profiles, and see what your ideal client is posting. See what questions are coming up for them or problems that they're having, and see if you can pull from that and create content around that too. Even Reddit, you can go to Reddit forums with your potential ideal client in there and see what's coming up. Read the comments, read some of the blurbs that are coming up too. So yeah, if you're a little stuck there, that's a good way to approach it, on a very subliminal level, where it's just you're lurking, but you're not stalking. You're just seeing what is out there and what's being talked about currently, and see if you can jump on that bandwagon and create content for that. So I hope that was helpful. That was talking about marketing, because again, how are you going to get known, right? How are you going to spread brand awareness if you don't market yourself? So I understand that some people don't like social media. But right now, that seems to be the only way to work this, through the current time right now in terms of the digital era, that social media is the way to go right now in terms of spreading your name out there and getting awareness and getting possible potential customers. So I hope that that was helpful. And if you have any questions for me, you can comment down below and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Other than that, I want to thank you for your time and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Have a good one. Bye.